It just takes one vote against these players to be sending them out of the game, which sounds pretty wild that this has been an occasion in recent Survivor. What's up, everybody? This is Willie, and today I'm back talking about Survivor, and I'm going to touch upon the times that we had players get voted out of the game by just one single vote against them. And by what I mean by that is excluding from the final 3 votes because they're automatic. So the ones I'm talking about is vote-offs where it requires a group of players voting and for the casualty to be eliminated with just one vote. And to further emphasize on it, the only circumstances that can lead to this is when the primary target finds some sort of immunity that nullifies all the votes the players casted against them outside of their own vote, and then their one vote will send home the person of their choosing. And this has become a bit of a norm in modern Survivor, which definitely has bleeded itself into International Survivor too, AU in particular. But I'm just going to solely talk about US Survivor and the times that we had an occasion where a player was just sniped out with one vote. So the first time we ever had this happen was when Ben Driebergen would idle out Lauren Rimmer with just his single vote as he nullifies everyone else's votes against him with his immunity idol. To contextualize everything, Lauren Rimmer was a really powerful player and she had a sub-alliance with Ben, Ashley, and Devin, but the 3 of them agreed that Ben was eventually becoming a threat and needed to be sniped out, which unbeknownst to them, Ben overheard them and is now turned against them, and especially when his former ally Chrissy, alongside Ryan, had a huge dispute with them after he betrayed them in the last vote. He took the opportunity to try and work them against Lauren in particular and get her out, and that would lead to such a crazy chaos at Tribal where people just got up left and right trying to flip the votes from Lauren to Ben and vice versa, and eventually they landed all on Ben. However, he had an idol and he saved himself with it, and Lauren would be taken now, which the blindside was pretty insane. But also, Lauren already had a sense that she was going home because Ben blatantly said he was writing her name down at Tribal. So that takes away some of the suspense from this Tribal. On top of the insanity at the Tribal, Lauren also had a half idol that she tried to give to Mike for trust, but then stupid Dr. Mike threw in the fire, which stings for her even more. So Lauren pretty much got herself screwed because of all the circumstances happening. But oh well, this Tribal would be the start of this wild Survivor feat. So we jump quite a few seasons later, and the next time a player would be eliminated by one vote would take place in Survivor Winners at War, which the casualty would be none other than the queen herself, Sandra DiazTwine, when Denise Stapley would idle her out of the game with her one vote. So to dwell upon how this even happened is when Denise Stapley was the prime target for the upcoming vote, and with a tribe of 5, she seems like a pretty easy consensus boot. However, Sandra was in possession of a timed idol, and her idol would be expired that night. So she decided she wanted to try and make a move for herself and get rid of Tony, but without being direct about it. So she tried to have Denise make the move for her, and in order to do it, she wanted to give her idol to Denise so she could play for herself, which unbeknownst to her, Denise already had another idol for herself. But now that she gave her one, Denise holds now 2 idols, and she seemed to be on board with Sandra's idea of taking out Tony. However, with Sandra's idol now in her possession, it gave her another idea that she could make something more huge for the upcoming vote. And when we get there, everyone cast their votes against her, and Denise plays Sandra's idol for herself, but then she gets up and plays her own idol on Jeremy, which made you question why. Well, Sandra did mention how Jeremy was a potential vote as well, which for further context, Denise and Jeremy were original Cele members, while the other 3 are original to Cult, so it's reasonable why Jeremy was at risk as well. However, with Denise playing her idol on Jeremy, it 1 ensures that her move decides who goes. 2, she now gains more trust with Jeremy even though he voted for her. And 3, she ensures that the call member of her choosing goes as well. So Jeff reads the votes and they're all against Denise, which is nullified, and her one vote blindsides Sandra DiazTwine, which I know definitely shocked a lot of the Survivor audience and community when she pulled out this savage move by taking out the queen, which then would lead to her being labeled as the Queen Slayer. So yeah, one vote eliminating 2-time winner Sandra was definitely something that continued this wild trend, and now we jump into the new era. We have another few season jump, and we get to the first tribal council of Survivor 44, where Maddie Pomeila is voted out. So let's get right into the story, where the Ratu tribe was going to the first tribal council. And everything is just a mess on who exactly is the prime target. But the end all be all is basically that Brandon was gonna be a boot because he had a public idol, which Maddie is able to orchestrate the votes against him. Meanwhile, we learn that Jamie is feeling very paranoid and is planning to play her shot in the dark tonight, meaning her vote is going to be revoked. And then Lauren has an advantage where she must sacrifice her vote in order to get an extra one, so she will not be voting either. And then from Brandon's side, we do get some snippets that he has no trust in Maddie, so we probably have a sense of who he's voting for. And after the tribes cast their votes, Jamie hands Jeff the shot in the dark scroll that she played, but we shockingly find out Matthew also rolled his die too, so his vote was not casted either, so that leaves us only 3 votes in the air. And then Brandon decides to play his idol on himself, adding to the insanity of the tribal, and he nullifies the 2 votes against him, and his one single vote takes Maddie out of the game. Which everything is just insane how it plays out, because there was no chance for any split votes since half of the majority did not vote. And furthermore, Brandon idling out the person who literally orchestrated his impending blindside just makes things everything more bizarre when you understand the circumstances of it. And considering this is the first tribal council of the season, that means 1 vote sent home the first person voted out. And bye bye Maddie, you fell victim to that. And on par with Sandra, this is another time where the 1 vote casualty shocked the audience as well, but not to the degree of Sandra's obviously, and considering the Ratu tribe is one that we never really were edited to care for, it does sort of harm the overall connection we were supposed to have with this tribe, but whatever. This would be the 3rd time that a player would be eliminated by a single vote, and now we get to the last time it would happen. And now as of this recording, this is the latest occasion up to this point where a player was voted out with 1 vote, and that is when Julie Alley idled out Emily Flippin with her single vote. And the events leading up to this shows how ridiculous it is when you realize how people weren't playing optimally. So Julie is part of the Reba 4 alliance that was dominating the post-merge, but then she eventually became a threat, so the Reba has turned on her. However, Dee was still someone on her side and needed her in the game, and because Austin decided to give one of his idols to Julie, she had possession of one, and Dee decided to secretly tell her to play her idol on herself and order her to vote for Emily because she was becoming a jury threat, despite it being against Julie's judgments and wanting her to be Austin instead, which is not good for Dee's sake. But she continued to fight back against it and pulled all the magic she could to persuade Julie to vote her way, but Julie's mind was still up in the air, so when we had the players vote, the show blatantly showed everyone but Julie's votes because obviously, and for obvious fashion, we know Julie was going to play her idol, so that tribal, the person who's going to be voted out was going to be by her single vote, and after all the votes are nullified against her, she single-handedly voted out Emily. And I think this occasion is just crazy, and it also makes you wonder why none of the majority decide to split their votes. That's definitely a question mark for certain players who were playing very dominantly that season. And from the reception of this tribal, it was still exciting to see if Julie was going to stick with Dee's plan or go through with her own agendas, and she still ended up siding with her friend, which maintained her trust with her and did spare her another round in the next vote. So with that, this is the last tribal up to this point where we had a player get voted out with a single vote. So that wraps up everything about this topic, and I think it's very insane how circumstantial an occasion like this occurs, because there's really no other way for something like this to happen, where to reiterate, an idol is required and the sole vote from that player is needed for an event that a player gets voted out from 1 vote. And looking how it all started, it obviously took place in Modern Survivor and is now become a somewhat norm that I can guarantee will probably happen again some point down the road. And we'll just see how insane they'll be in comparison to the ones that we have so far. So we'll see. But with that, I appreciate you all tuning into this video, and I will continue to make more reality TV related content in the future, and also with Survivor 48 nearing its end and EU vs. the World just coming by very soon, I've definitely got my hands full of seasons to cover. That's it, and I'll see you all in another video.